The Wandlebeats will be remembered as one of the greatest bands of the 1960s. But not many people realise that the history of the group started a full 6 years before they exploded onto the music scene in 1963. The band a shopping centre in the south of England, and the band's beginnings lie at Croydon College, where in 1957 Stanley and PJ first met.
How did you and Stanley Dannon first meet?
Well, we met in college. In fact, all of us met in college. We all found that we had the same taste in music, and we just thought, it would be great to form our own band and play some of the student gigs.
Yeah, we're all at college in about 57, I think it was. And, these two weird-looking guys came up to me and said, "Do I want to join the group?" I was already in the band at that time, but I don't know, it just seemed a good idea. So I joined, but I regretted it later, obviously.
Well, Stan and I used to go around each other's places a lot and just sit together and knock out a few ideas. We'd just often, would think of a good theme, a good title, and just go from there. And Stanley would work on the words. He's a very good words man, and I'd knock out a few tunes on the piano,
Well, in the early days, we really did write songs together. We used to, go down the pub, have about 10 pints usually. That used to give us inspiration, really. We used to come back and write these really meaningful songs. Like, I love to love you, love, that kind of thing. And it was the sort of thing that kids could identify with in those days,
Richie Fields, he usually wrote his songs alone, because he seemed to come from a bit of a different background from the rest of us. He was into rock and roll in a big way, and he wrote a lot of straight rock and roll numbers, whereas the other two wrote as a team, and they were into this love song thing.
Oh, that's a tricky one. The first one we ever wrote together.
Or the earliest song.
The earliest song. That was in about 61, no, 1960, late 60. Stanley and I wrote "Love Me Please."
Oh,
yeah,
"Love Me Please."
Yeah, that was quite simple. Do you remember? Love, love me please.
Oh baby,
You know I'd love a squeeze.
just maybe, down on my knees. So love me please. Woo!
Yeah.
And basically most of those songs were very similar to that. They were all
Yeah.
3 chords, not many.
Often 2 chords. I mean that
Yeah.
one I wrote to celebrate the learning of my 3rd chord.
Yeah.
Stanley only knew 1 chord at that stage, so he was a bit limited, but he's very good on lyrics, as you can tell from that one. Really
Yeah.
good.
The Wandlebeats started playing around the local area and eventually secured a regular Wednesday night spot at the now infamous Star Pub in Broad Green. And it was while playing here that they met the man who was to become their manager.
And it was just another gig as far as we were concerned, but this geezer wandered in in a suit, and he really looked out of place, and he just stood at the back. We didn't take much notice of him, but we played through our gig, had our usual great time.
They were good. They were playing live, and I liked them. I liked their tunes, I liked their musicianship. So I went up to them after the gig and said, "Do you want a manager?" And they seemed a bit directionless at the time, so they took me on, and things started rolling then.
Leonard managed to get them an audition at Hibernia Studios, part of a local record label called Selhurst Sounds. But much to the group's dismay, they were turned down.
The various conflicting stories about that. I think basically we were too advanced for the studio. They weren't really the sort of studio that we should have gone for, but you didn't have that much choice in the early 60s. Studios would dictate what people should be listening to. We were raw, we were powerful, I think we shocked, we were too shocking for them. By the time of the 2nd audition, Leonard had got us to tone down, smooth out, and really get our dress sense into perspective. And that time we did a lot better. It's a shame that we possibly lost a bit of our raw energy in the early days.
Wadden Park Productions, they were the big record company in the south at the time, and we thought that the Wandlebeats ought to be on with them. So I went up to them and I said that the Wandlebeats were great, and they listened to me. They probably didn't believe half what I was saying, but they felt that they couldn't afford to miss out on this one because it could be really big, and they took a chance, and it worked.
In the position of producing new young talent at that time was a young producer called Larry Mildmoose.
I was immediately impressed with them generally. Very strong characters, I thought. Mega weird. Never come across anybody quite like them before or since.
We got on really well with Larry, but he was a bit of a square really. He was into really highbrow stuff, like the Goons. He had all of Harry Seacombe's albums, all that male voice choir stuff. That was his bag really. I don't believe allowed shirts and that sort of thing. It was the Treorchy male voice choir.
Wadden Park Productions was a whole different story from Selhurst Sounds because, well, one reason being Larry Mildmoose, the producer on that session, he could relate more to early 60s youth, because he was young himself, and he could handle it more. We played a selection of standard 50s covers like you did in those days. We did a few of our good early songs like Love, 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 Go On, Love Me, and I Lift My Heart in Tierra del Fuego. And Larry really dug them. He could tell that they had real market potential.
Of course, the early songs, the early 60s, the formula songs, as I used to think of them, the Chrome Allen partnership, they were good. They were very successful. They could come up with a song maybe once a fortnight, sort of stripped down completely, sort of shop-ready song, and that was it. No problems, no sort of pulling their hair out type stuff. It was we'll sit down, we'll make up a few rather trite lyrics, basically. I mean, in retrospect, they were. At the time, they seemed fresh, etc. But now we know what they were like, really. Good, but not that good.
I've got no idea, personally, why we chose I Think You'll Smash It as a single. The first single. It was one that I didn't have that much to do with writing. It was PJ's song, and it was very cliched.
Well, they played me quite a number of different songs, between 50 and 60, I would say. At the end of the day, it was that one. It was either that or 50 or 60 others like it.
Their first single, released on the 21st of August 1962, peaked in the charts at number 26, doing remarkably well for a virtually unknown group.
We were then approached by two characters from Tiger Brand Coffee. Bit of an odd approach, I thought, but we listened to them. They suggested that the Wandlebeats could be a good new up-and-coming band for their advertising series that they were going to produce, and we thought this was a good chance to extend the Wandlebeats exposure, so we took them up on it, and after that they came up with this plan for the television series that later followed.
And I had to devise a series of sort of interesting plots for this up-and-coming band by which we could demonstrate the beneficial effects that Tiger Coffee could give to just about everybody in almost any situation. Such as, I don't know, maybe Stanley would say to PJ, gosh, I'm a bit struck for inspiration at the moment, and PJ would say, well, why don't you have a cup of Tiger Coffee and see if that gives you something to think about.
The Wandlebeats appeared in no less than 12 adverts, broadcast nationwide, and they soon became a household name.
Well, after the advert, Stanley came to me with this song called I Can't Get Enough of Your Love, Love. My first impression was that the lyrics were so inane, so banal, so pathetic, it could never ever be a hit. But I phoned Leonard, and he suggested the coffee lyric.
I just couldn't think of anything of it, really, so I said, Stanley, it's a good tune, but the lyrics are awful. So he went away, and about a couple of weeks later he came back with Are You Coming Back for Coffee? Which you might not think of thought at the time was any better, but given its link with the coffee adverts, I thought could really break the groove.
Many contacts and his natural persuasive skill, Leonard managed to get the group interviews and radio spots to help promote the single. And on the 3rd of March 1963, after almost 8 weeks of solid promotion, Are You Coming Back for Coffee was #1 in the hit parade. The Wandlebeats had arrived. They were awarded Record of the Year for 1963 and notched up 1 million record sales.
1, 2, 3, 4.
A lot of their material centred around the theme of love. I mean, they were love songs, that was their speciality. I got the impression, in fact, that they had a bit of a fixation about love, relationships, that sort of thing. Possibly it reflected on their success, or perhaps lack of success with the opposite sex, I don't know. Certainly once they became famous, female following was not hard to come by.
Well, a lot of my songs sound very romantic, especially the early ones, as the one I probably love, I Love You, I Think, Do You Love Me, you're the one I probably love, and Why Don't You Love Me, or Do You? They're all on, I mean, love was where it was at in the early 60s anyway, that's what songs were about. But I had the element of doubt, because I don't think people really ever can tell that they are definitely in love.
They were all very simple, repetitive melodies. The lyrics were all very simple, like their minds. It was the way their minds worked, and it reflected in the songwriting style. I think balls on the theme of love or loving, you know, this perverse obsession with the delights of the flesh or the body or whatever you will have it, which none of these four idiots ever stood a hooting heck of attaining in real life, except...
A month later they released Is This Love or Isn't It?, which also went straight to #1. 2 weeks later they released their first album, Meet the Wonderful Wandlebeats, which held the top spot for 30 consecutive weeks and contained no less than 12 Chrome Allen originals.
Now that was recorded in one 20-minute session. Now this is despite the fact that they were such perfectionists, but don't forget, by the time they got to the point of recording this album, they were thorough professionals, even at that early time. One 20-minute session.
After the first album got to #1, we really had to think, and we decided that now was the time for the first tour, the key one. If it worked, it would be good.
Well, we played in 36 states over 2 months, but sort of playing in England all the time, we were used to 500 capacity maximum. But in America, everything's big, really big. So we were having 10,000 people at a time, and you know, we just weren't used to it.
And of course, when Wandlemania hit, you know, we were basically swamped. You know, every time we went out of the hotel, out of the recording studio, there'd be huge packs of fans waiting for us to get autographs, you know, just to touch us.
The Wandlebeats were now starting to cause the scenes that they would soon become accustomed to. Fans would wait for hours just to catch a glimpse of the wonderful foursome.
You like the Wandlebeats? Oh! Can I ask why? Oh! You didn't sign my book! You didn't sign her book! Did not even sign.
Richie was the heartthrob of the band, and the girls all loved him. And basically, we didn't see a lot of him. He never seemed to be around, in fact, apart from when we were playing live. After the gigs, he disappeared and didn't see him till the next morning.
When I first met my girlfriend, the manager wanted to keep it quiet because obviously the public wouldn't like it. Me being the most popular member of the band and all the girls liking me. And So I wasn't even allowed to be seen with her.
Every angle, every corner, there'd be a woman somewhere. They were pretty hectic times. Women all over the place. I just wish some of them could have looked at me, you know?
Well, I was approached by Leonard, that's Leonard Shrewsbury, their manager, of course, to make this series about 4 young lads sharing a flat in Upper Norwood, and the sort of exploits the everyday occurrences of their lives. And I must confess the first series was a little contrived. This was basically, I suppose, a sitcom with accompanying music from the band, basically to get the band's music out to the public and to draw in some revenue from the Beeb, of course.
Look, my boys don't play second-rate gigs. Look, I don't care who's going to be there. What's the capacity? 10,000. Do you think we can't fill 10,000? We'd fill 50,000 without even trying. I don't care.
Oh, Ronnie, have you got the dates for the tour yet?
Trust me, Jules, when I get the dates, you'll be the first to have them.
But I met this really nice chick, you see, and I want to know if I'll be free on Wednesday.
Wednesday. I've booked you at the Derby and Joan Club, Jules.
Oh, no. Oh, what am I going to tell Marigold?
The weekly television shows went out at peak viewing times, and soon, Hello, We're the Wandlebeats became the most popular programme on BBC television, bringing in record viewing figures and voted the best light entertainment programme of 1964.
The television series was a good idea because it gave us the chance to give plenty of exposure to every new record. The band would usually read a rough draft of the plot, go away and come up with new songs to fit the storyline.
You know, so we had all these people telling us, right, you know, could you write a love song, you know, for the next single? And of course, PJ and Stanley had to, you know, do this. And of course, after that single, they'd ask for another one, you know. And it went on like this for, you know, several years, providing these very basic love songs. And I think it was probably quite limiting for PJ and Stanley, you know, as a songwriting duo, because they weren't able to progress at that time.
Yeah, I didn't much like the television series that we did. It seemed very commercial at the time, and it was getting us a lot of money, but it wasn't the type of thing I wanted to do. But I couldn't get out of it. We were in a contract with the TV company, and it was something we had to do. We had to fulfil the contract.
Meanwhile, the Wandlebeats kept up their busy schedule, recording in the studio, performing live, all fitted in between the weekly filming sessions.
I'd say that they were quite stimulating to work with in most ways. They'd tend to sort of come along with new ideas, or things I hadn't thought of, or probably things that nobody had ever thought of. So stimulating, a bit boisterous sometimes, yes. Sometimes just too drunk. But in the main, they were quite bouncy, I suppose. It's a good word for them.
But I mean, it was an experience for us all because it was our first delve into the acting profession, and I think we gained a lot of experience from that, you know, for our later films.
I think that was Stanley. Again, he tended to lead the group in that respect, and he felt that television was basically ephemeral. No one would know, really, no one would care in 5 years' time what had been on television. He felt that films, I mean, Gone with the Wind, Citizen Kane, they've been around for years, and he felt that if he could make a successful film, people would be watching him in the future. That's what he wanted. I think he longed really for immortality, and that's what he felt a film could give him.
I think you get more money out of films, really, to be honest. Wasn't any great artistic thing.
We thought it was high time that not only should we give the lads more time, but we should actually show them as being themselves. And of course, this was the big step forward that Here We Come A-Wandling gave us, in that, of course, the lads actually started to be seen by the public as having their own personalities, which was, well, different from the TV series, in that, of course, there they were playing set things which the script writers had given them. Now they could just throw it all away and be themselves.
Oh right, yeah. How's the new single doing? Oh yeah, it's isn't it Why Don't You Love Me or Do You? Yeah? Yeah, I think it's that one, yeah. Or was that the one we released the previous month?
The film displayed the characteristic southern humour of the band, and soon became a box office success. Both the music and the group's acting won the praise of critics everywhere.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The first film was probably the best, from my point of view. It was fresh. It was what they, I think, with most not quite great artists, the first outpouring of their talent is always the best. And in this case, they certainly weren't great. They were good. They knew how to make a film, but the second one didn't quite have the sparkle of the first.
1965. The film we starred in then was Gonna Love Her for the Four of Us, which was regarded by some as a forward move from, you know, Here We Come A-Wandling, because it did actually have a substantial plot, and it did actually involve us acting to some degree.
We had Rachel Forthright in to play the lead role, and really we went around this amazing plot. I mean, it's so outrageous that it could almost be true, I suppose. And anyway, there they were, these four lads, waiting at an aircraft departure lounge for their holiday in Mallorca. And who should come trolling along is good old Rachel. Anyway, needless to say, the poor little buggers didn't stand a chance. They all went head over heels in love with her. And the rest of the film is sort of taken up with how on earth we could actually contrive to satisfy each one of them, if you take my meaning. And of course it ended up that she had 3 sisters.
Wandle, 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 Wandle. 1, 2,
2, 3, 4.
Meanwhile, their music continued to progress, and in May 1965, they released You're the One I'd Probably Love, regarded by many as a major turning point in their songwriting.
You're the One I Probably Love was a step to more sophisticated sort of songwriting, I feel. We used about 8 chords, which was an advance on the usual average of about 5. You know, the average was lowered by a lot of 1 and 2 chord songs, but using 8 was really quite an amazing advance at the time. Yes.
I mean, I used to listen a lot to the Beach Boys, but once I'd heard this song by the Wandlebeats, I couldn't be bothered with the Beach Boys anymore.
1, 2, 3. You're the one.
Late 65, I got worried about the group's future. Stanley and PJ started writing some rather self-obsessed songs. I'm a groovy guy. I couldn't quite see why they were saying that. Everyone knew they were groovy guys, but why say it on a song? I mean,
think there was a change from the early insecure songs till we started to feel more self-assured, more confident in our abilities, and instead of, you know, really knuckling under with the early criticism and things like that, we decided that we had to make a statement that, well, we thought we were pretty good, and fad, really, and so we wrote the songs like We're Simply Fad, replying to critics. And
songs like that, We're Simply Fab, were really one huge ego trip, because not only did they make them an awful lot of money, they also proclaimed that they were simply fab, and in the words of the title of another of their songs, bigger than the Beatles. I think that was more a reference to their height than their record-selling ability.
We're simply fab, there is no doubt. We're no social tumor to be taken out. Not hairy fools without musical tastes. Imitations born by atomic waste. We're not a fad that will die out soon. Not tone deaf morons out of tune. Unkempt cretins of uncertain sex. Immature adolescents with spotty necks. Wimped out weeds, obnoxious ways. Who owe success to bribe DJs. We're not really kinda avaricious trash that sell their mothers for a sniff of cash. No post-war urban social decay has caused us slags to play this way. We're simply fab, simply fab, simply fab, and that's all there is to say.
I mean, it was getting very difficult to reproduce what they were doing in the studio on stage, and they just didn't like playing for too long together anyway. They'd generally just go in by themselves. I mean, Jules would go in and do his drums, then Stanley would go in and do his thing. They'd never been in the recording studio together. You know.
They decided that live gigging was no more what they wanted to do. I always felt that they were basically a live band, and they started doing the Effingham Junction film. Couldn't quite see what they were trying to do there. They kept me on as manager, but I never really understood it. And they started taking drugs, of course. That was never quite part of my scene. I always felt that, again, the public saw them as good, clean living boys. That was their image, and that was where they were making their money. And
the first film was, you know, a documentary type thing. Second one was, well, second one was a bit too much like our TV series, contrived. We thought, right, we're gonna do one that's our own script, our own ideas, reflects the way we feel.
And in essence, you see, the band were waking up to the fact that really they were probably capable of doing something themselves, which of course inevitably meant that they thought I was less capable of doing it for them. However, they ended up in this film with quite a large control, and in the end I think it was a mistake. I mean, everybody should have their right to have their 15 minutes on world stage. Fine. When it comes to these four, I think it would have been best curtailed to about 30 seconds.
Did you find them? No. No, I can't see them anywhere.
Oh, God, we've lost them.
We've only got 12 minutes to find the source of the Wandle.
Well, you know what that means, don't you?
Yes.
The Great Snoozle will block off the source of the Wandle.
And that means no more Wandle
music.
Go! I'll go for a car Shilton.
OK, I'll see you what a marsh.
They lit up, they drifted away, and they imagined that this great snoozle, which was a sort of half man, half fish, and he's like an upside-down mermaid. In the bottom was man, and the top was fish, which was obviously something on a different scale. Anyway, so there was the great snoozle stalking around Beddington Park. And the plot of the film, the real danger of the film, was that he was actually planning to cut off the source of the Wandle and thereby stop all of their music. I must confess I ended up feeling something of an affinity with this character. Obviously he had his head, or should we say his fish head, screwed on the right way.
I really think you're quite good.
PJ!
Hey, Jules, I've written a new song.
Look, I've got something to tell you.
You want to hear it?
The whole of Croydon depends on this.
Goes like this. Ooh, you affectionate thing. Ooh, you make my heart
No,
sing.
PJ, look, the Great Snoozle are going to block up the source of the Wandle, and that means no more Wandle music.
How long have we got?
4 minutes. 4 minutes?
Effingham Junction was the first film we had full control over. We could decide when to put the songs in, and I thought it was a good chance to win back our public, which we'd lost from the cinemas. But I think we ruined it because we didn't know what we were doing. We just really messed up that chance.
And we done this at the beginning of 1967. We actually sat down and tried. And, you know, we had troubles, everyone had their own idea of what the film was going to be like. And a few arguments started, you know, setting in. And I think, yeah, really that was when the band started, you know, falling apart. You know, that was the early danger signals for me, really, that we were not working as a group anymore.
I think they ended up alienating their manager. Most of the Fleet Street critics. Vast majority of their own fans. Me. And probably, if not alienating, at least severely confusing themselves.
The film, however, still did good business at the box office, proving that the Wandlebeats still had a loyal following. But their musical interests, meanwhile, were growing more and more bizarre.
By 1967 they had left their topical period behind and had entered into the world of psychedelia. And they embraced the flower power movement, or perhaps some could say they even helped to create it.
I think our dress sense was one of the biggest factors that determined our early success and even our later success, you know, to a lesser degree. It was just actually the individual band members' personal dress sense that governs, you know, the way we dressed in those days.
Hippies, it depended on who you're talking about. Me and Stanley and Jules, to a certain extent, got very into wearing flowers and sort of beads, sandals, not washing, especially Stanley. He never washed. And Richie, on the other hand, was still sort of more into bebop.
Yeah, well, that was just a real weird time. You just walked into the studio and picked up whatever instrument was there, and the others were getting into sort of cowbells and bongo drums and things like that. It wasn't really to my taste.
I think Stanley and Wandleman was self-indulgent. That's because it was me. I'm a self-indulgent person. It was an attempt to fuse just about every cultural influence that we had on us.
Stanley and the Wandlemen was considered two-way out even to 1967's growing band of Hippies, and it failed to make the charts. The Wandlebeats had now reached a decisive moment in their career.
Well, the ecology theme came from, I mean, we're named after the Wandle, the pollution of the Wandle, therefore sort of really affected us personally. And we wanted to extend that, and Stanley especially wanted to really make statements about you know, the world of ecology, Wales, and the Green Album, and really expressed our feelings on that. We went along with Stanley.
The ecology thing was, it's a general feeling in the group at the time, but I really wanted to get something musical going about ecology, and at this time PJ was quite into it as well. I mean, he wrote some good stuff then. We weren't really writing that much together at that time, but he still had the feel then for innovation to some extent.
It was about October '67, I think, when I saw that Wander by the Wandle video. I'd not really been involved in any of this. I was still nominally the manager, but they never talked to me anymore. And I saw this, and it worried me. I couldn't see where they were going.
So
got so ridiculous, really psychedelic, and the music, well, it wasn't really music. And I thought it was time to get back to the basics. So we cut an album, which our ecological album. But it was just the basic bass and guitar. It was just basic tracks.
Well, we've gone to the logical extent of studio effects and flanging and echo and lots of silly noises, and we thought that, well, we'd really done all we could in that respect, and we want to get back to the good old early days.
Then Stanley worked out the chords of this process song he'd been working on. The album itself seemed to grow after that. We called it the Green Album. And now you're going to ask me why it was called Green Album, aren't you? The album cover was green.
Stop this bloody pollution right now. Stop this bloody pollution right now. Stop this bloody pollution right now. 'Cause we said so.
Source of the Wandle, or the Green Album as it was known, gave the group the renewed chart success that they so desperately needed. But all was not going well with the band at that time.
Well, it was Stanley who mostly used to lead the band. There was PJ and myself who used to give him ideas, but he never used to listen to us. It was just what he wanted all the time. And it just wasn't right. I was getting two tracks for each album, my own songs, the way I could produce my own songs the way I wanted to. He let me do that, but he just dominated the whole thing, and it just wasn't working.
Rock and Roll Special, that was Richie, really. He wanted to do his sort of stuff. I think it was a sort of last ditch, did I say that right? Last ditch attempt to railroad us into that sort of direction. We all went along with it in order to sort of try and keep the band going, because our own songwriting was sort of, you know, going like that.
The rehearsals for the projected rock and roll special went ahead. The original idea, suggested by Richie, was to film the group playing live in the studio as they had done in the early days, and to perform some of the old rock and roll standards that had originally inspired them.
Since my baby left me, I found a new place to dwell. It's down the end of Lonely Street in Heartbreak Hotel. I feel so lonely, baby. I feel so lonely. I feel so lonely, I could cry. I don't know any other words to this song, oh no. I don't know any other words, but well, let's go. I feel so lonely. I feel so lonely. I feel so lonely. I could cry. Thank you.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of tension in the band. I used to argue with Jules. Jules used to argue with Richie quite a lot, and we all argued with Stanley. Basically, we all argued a lot.
1969 was the last year in the history of the group. Now, I think this was signified the mood in the group at that time. At the beginning of 1969, they decided to compile a back to basics idea. They completed the back to basics idea by releasing an entire album of very bad rock and roll cover versions. And this was the ultimate rebellion, I think, against themselves. Tempers were frayed, there were arguments, they all wanted to go solo. I think they were writing more for themselves and for the group.
At the time of the album, the Wandlebeats played The Wonderful World of Rock and Roll. That's when I released my first solo album, called Richie Fields. And I had a lot of trouble from both the record company and the other members of the band, because they obviously thought it would overshadow the Wandlebeats album, and which of course it would have.
On the 3rd of March 1969, with the band's future looking ever more uncertain, they released the soundtrack album of the yet uncompleted television special and put out their last ever single, the aptly named I Can't Stand It.
Well, by the time of I Can't Stand It, it was just feeling very negative to be in the Wandlebeats, and we wanted to do our own projects and things like that. And but we felt that we owed another song to the fans.
I get to thinking that I'm wasting my time because life's not like it is in my mind. Everybody's so concerned with their own greed, always chasing after things they don't even need. I can't stand it anymore, I can't stand it. I feel sure I can't stand it, and I'm not gonna take it anymore. There's a man lives down the road who's got 2 wives, and he's jealous of his neighbor 'cause he's got 5. In reality they wish that they had none, but it's too late to tell the schools just what they've done. I can't stand it anymore, I can't stand it. I feel sure I can't stand it, and I'm not gonna take it anymore. I can't stand it anymore, I can't stand it. I feel sure I can't stand it, and I'm not gonna take it anymore.
I think for a start, one of the reasons was that they had all acquired girlfriends. Richie was rather upset at not having enough songs on the album. He needed to branch out. In fact, he had this solo album, very imaginatively titled Richie Fields. Then, of course, there was the other solo excursions. There was Stan's Angry Young Stan. There was PJ's effort Let's Fall in Love. Not to mention, although I will, Jules's 50 minutes of drum solos, Crash Bang Wallop, which had limited appeal, I must say. But it was a contributing factor, I think, to the split. Very sad.
Well, it was Richie really. He was frustrated at not getting his way musically, and he was the first to leave. And the rest of us were all doing solo albums at the time, and they didn't really see any point in continuing. So we, after that first phone call from Richie, we called it a day.
On the 25th of September 1969, after several attempts to settle the arguments, the Wandlebeats as a band were no more.
I think it has to be down to personalities, a disparate group of people, no, not really any 2 of them very similar as people. They all had different objectives in life, and as they matured, they found what they wanted, and it really wasn't being part of a group with the other 3. Sad, but that's what life is about.
What did you think of the Wandlebeats as people?
Well, I liked them myself. They were lovely boys.
What do you think of the Wandlebeats?
Oh, I think they were really smashing, really gorgeous and
Oh, I thought they were really excellent, one of the best groups of that era, and I thought Stanley was absolutely drop-dead gorgeous, and I saw them twice.
They had a phenomenal skill. They could just write songs in their sleep virtually, and I'm sure sometimes they did. Mammoth recording sessions, mammoth writing sessions. So there's so much music, they've got to be remembered for some of it really, haven't they?
I think the Wandlebeats will be remembered as perhaps one of the greatest groups of all time, but personally, I think of them as a group of friendly lads who made me a lot of money. And I thank them for that.
No see.